some of the others are having problems with the sound.
Anne Marie, is there anything we need to do?
So I've got it recording.
Okay.
I don't have it streaming yet. I'm trying to get it set up to stream. So I don't know why it's not doing it. All right, so I am recording it, so I can get Jackie a recording. For some reason I can't, I'm not getting the option to stream it. So you can go.
Good to go?
Yep.
All righty, we'll start our first Parks and Recreation Committee meeting on Zoom, Monday, July 27th, 7 p.m. Thank everybody for coming. I'm glad everybody figure out how to.
And just a reminder that we are recording these working group meetings.
So if you're, I don't know, Emery, do you control the volume or?
I'll make sure she hears the speakers for class.
Yeah, I think what they can either get up with me or get up with my sister.
So just to let you know, if you can look in your screen and see if you're on mute or unmute, just so that we don't hear you in the background. Appreciate it. We'll try to make this easy and fast and get through our Zoom meeting.
And Allison, I would note that you have a number of attendees. So the attendees at some point, when the commission is ready to take public comment or questions, you can use the raise hand feature or the chat, and then I'll make sure Allison knows that we have people waiting to speak.
Okay. All right. I don't have any announcements at the moment. This is probably going to be my last Parks and Rec committee meeting. As a city is hiring for a replacement, I am moved down to the maintenance department and facilities. I'm still, but in a different role. And the city is going to be hiring a new parks and marine administrator here, hopefully shortly. So this will be my last meeting, but I will be with the city.
You've been great.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll still be here. So if you have questions, I'll still be around to help fill in the new person and get them rolling. So we have the February, oh guys, it's been since February 24th regular meeting minutes for approval. Does anybody have any edits, changes? Can anybody motions to approve as is, or any comments on them?
I move we accept the minutes for February.
Rodney makes a motion. Anybody second?
I second.
Lou seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Minutes approved. February from 2020 are approved. Thank you very much. We have our commissioner reports. This is just to get an update on things that you as part of liaison to other committees. Barry, are you on? If you are, you might be muted.
Barry's trying to get on. He has a slow computer.
Okay, well, we'll come back to Barry.
This is Warren. My computer, it just says waiting. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can see you and hear you, Warren.
But I can't see I can't see you. I'm just showing waiting.
Okay, I don't know how Emery can give any suggestions, but we can see you and we can hear you, Warren.
Okay, that's fine.
Everybody keep free.
All right, so Lorna, do you have any updates on the Friends of George H.P. Smith Park? And you are muted right now, Lorna. I don't know how to.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
I have a little update. As of last March, the Friends of the Park, last March and April and early April, we planted 13 shrubs and 59 perennials in the buffer and on the island of the G.H.P. Smith Park. At the direction of the city, we stopped working in the park in early April due to the COVID virus and have had no meetings since. A little later, my husband George and I moved the remaining pile of wood chips from the removal of the Bradford pears last fall and spread them around the elderberries. He also helped clean up some of the English ivy from several trees in the same area. We've also had contact with the Historical Mark Program coordinator from the Delaware Public Archives concerning the Blockhouse Pond marker. Her email comments are as follows. The ongoing health crisis has slowed all aspects of the markers program, but we're continuing to make progress with the Blockhouse Pond marker. I hope to be able to share a draft of the marker text with you and the city for review in the next month or so. Once the project gets a little further along, we will arrange for a meeting at the park with the city and other stakeholders to determine a marker placement. And that's kind of covering pretty much all that happened between the Friends and between anything that I've had to do in the park.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rodney, do you have any update on the Friends of Canal Front Park? You're on mute right now, Rodney.
Okay, thank you. I'm thrilled to be able to say that the renovation has finally been completed. And there were a few little bugs to be worked out, as one would expect, but apparently, as far as I know, it's been running. The grass, which turned brown in June, is coming back nicely, I think, because Patrick's been running almost every day to bring them back and get it looking good. So that's one major project, which I think is behind us now. The whiskey barrels that the Friends organization wanted to have been put in place on the roof of that house and irrigated, and they're planted now so that you can enjoy some color in there. The only other thing is there are several trees throughout the park which are in severe decline. Some of them I think are dead actually and need to come down, but I know I've been involved in correspondence between Allison and I guess Marty and Harbor Care about trying to save some of them and taking some others out. That's my report. And I would just say, any of you that aren't talking, please put yourself on mute. Because Warren, I can hear everything you're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry, something just got printed.
Yes, and when it happens, it cuts everyone else out from talking. So
I'm sorry.
that's okay. We're all learning how to operate this system. But if you can possibly put yourself on mute, like I'm going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Going down the agenda, Lou, do you have any updates on the community garden and then Zwannendale Park?
Well, let me talk about the Zwannendale Park first. Actually, we got, since it's been 5 months since the last report, we actually got a lot done. We've been following all the proper procedures when we do work in the park. We conducted actually during that 5-week period, I called 7 different work parties with Lewis and Bloom helpers over that past 5 months. And this was for general cleanup, pruning, weeding, and we had a couple storms, so it was also like cleaning up the storm damage itself. I cleaned the fountain basin and moved the fountain from storage to the park in April. And I cleaned the basin since then on 2 other occasions to refresh it with clean water. The pansies wintered well over the, and only a few had been replaced in the spring. And actually their bloom this year was really spectacular. The tulip bloom also was spectacular, even though the Tulip Festival was canceled. I planned garden beds for spring and summer annuals, researched the plants and actually ordered them from Murphy John's nursery. However, the order was canceled, as you're aware, at the request of the city because of the concerns of reduced revenues resulting from the coronavirus pandemic. Cut back all the, cut back to the ground all the tulips after they bloom, rather than removing the bulbs that have been done in the past years. Removed the pansies from all beds and prepared them for planting with Lewis and Bloom help again. And this was the summer annuals now. And the plants were obtained from, actually returned from Lewis and Bloom. Warren and Lewis and Bloom actually supplied me with the plants this year rather than by normal contractor. And these were started in plugs. I designed and constructed 6 bluestone pads in the park for those 6 desert planters purchased last year. With Lewis and Bloom's help, they moved the planters from the warehouse, added soil and plants. And actually, I'm really happy with the desert planters. And they're performing really as well as I had hoped. I only have to really fill the reservoir maybe once every week and a half. And so it's really cut down on having to do that. And I also want to tell you, I got all my volunteer hours in through June.
Thank you.
And you want the community garden too?
Yeah, if you have any update on the community garden?
Yeah, I got a lot to talk about there. Now, the community garden has been really doing well, considering we're in this pandemic. We've been following all the rules when we do this, as far as face mask and social distancing and small groups and all that. But I'll start with, there's a whole bunch of items here. We were awarded a grant of $1,000 from Sussex County. And we also conducted a fundraiser at Mr. P's that generated, this was early in the year, $1,270 in proceeds and donations. We decided to, because of pandemic, we decided to curtail our fundraising for 2020 for the rest of the year. We have more than sufficient funds to cover our expenses and capital improvements for this year and probably even next year. So we're financially, we're in fantastic shape. We built in the spring 16 new 4x8 beds, garden beds this spring. We planted a flower bed around our garden sign, and we built 2 6-foot benches to rest while we in the shade, while we're working on the garden. We assembled and distributed through the garden. This worked out really well. Garden lot tick tubes. Okay, we put those in the in the garden itself and also all around the perimeter. And actually, it really worked well. We didn't have much problems with ticks this year at all. So it was a good tick control system that we employed. Well, we constructed water connections to 2 other locations in the garden and installed 100 feet hoses at each new station. We now have easy water distribution throughout the garden that's fenced in. We built a 2 feet by 16 feet herb garden. That's inside a garden fence for our community use. We erected 2 work tables inside the deer fence. So we got a lot of talent, and we got a lot of people that know how to build things. 12 new gardeners were welcome to join and lease garden plots this year. They were each given a thorough orientation and a copy of our garden handbook. Currently, there is a waiting list of 10 persons who definitely wish to lease plots. And we have about another 2 dozen that have expressed an interest, but they really haven't made up their mind yet. All our current 48 4 by 8 beds are leased. 43 are leased, and we use another 5 for community beds.
Download it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so we have 48 beds altogether. We have 43 of them leased, and then we have 5 beds that we call community beds. And these are actually, we're tended by the different people in the garden itself who take turns. But all that produce that is produced from these community beds is actually donated to food pantries. We also asked each of our members to voluntarily donate 25% of their produce to food banks. And I got to tell you that probably the majority of them do that and then some. We also, yeah, and that's pretty much on that part. We organized a small grove of native trees and supplemented these with 6 small sassafras trees, which were planted. We established a native pollinator garden and a milkweed patch for monarch butterflies. One of our gardeners built a large purple martin house with adjoining gourds underneath to also be used for housing. The garden shed that I purchased last year was recently remodeled inside with shelving and wall hangers to better organize and store our shared garden tools and equipment. And then the last thing we did, we prepared, and I'm pretty sure, I hope all you guys got it. We prepared our first anniversary publication and sent this out to all the Lewis Council members and the Parks and Recs commissioners. And we sent it also to all our sponsors. So I hope you had a chance to read it and enjoyed it. That's it.
All right. You guys done a lot. Thank you. I'll just give you a little update on the marina. We do have a new dock master and assistant dock master down at the marina. And they are both local, and they both have a lot of good experience. And the assistant is part of the Sea Scouts and very eager to learn and to do a lot of stuff. And the dock master is a local gentleman from Lewis and retired from the Navy. So he knows a lot about the waters and boats, and really happy with them so far. And I think they're really going to get the marina in a good place. And regarding the marina, this is at the end of this year, we'll be taking applications for marina slips. They will come back open again for a 2-year period. And if we have more applications than slips available, we'll do a lottery at council meeting, but that will be towards the end of the season around November. So that's the marina. See, Barry got on. And
Yeah, I was having technical difficulties beyond my control.
yeah, no problem, Barry. I was just going to ask if you had any update on the Public Art Commission, anything to share with the Public Art Commission?
Actually, yes. We got approval from BPW to do a mural on the bike trail side of the building. I think I don't know how to describe exactly where it is, but anyway, it will be clearly viewable from the bike trail. And if you wanted to walk or look at it otherwise, you would access it from either Franklin or Washington Avenue. We're in the process of raising $4,000 or $5,000 to fund it because you know, we've got to pay the artist. We may have to pay for one of those bucket trucks and so on and so forth. So we're in the process of that right now, and got all the approvals from pretty much from BPW, so they're all behind it. We actually decided to do the mural because the stained glass water tower was sort of canceled. At the time that we needed to erect it, we had a quarantine going on in Lewis, so it would have been almost impossible for the artist to come with a crew and erect it. So we canceled it for this year, and we're hoping that we can maybe do it next year, but you know, there's no guarantee that's going to happen because we did have to cancel or rescind on the contract.
Okay. Thank you. And then we'll go around with the rest. Upper right-hand corner, Candace. Do you have any update on Stango Park and Stango Extended?
Yes, I will do both tonight. And I have a new name, Basella.
Yeah.
I think it's only temporary though. I'll get my old name back soon. So yeah, on behalf of Christine, she's not able to be with us this evening. I'll give both reports tonight. So we had some electrical repairs made to the Margaret H. Rollins facility signage. The front sign that you can see from Kings Highway, it had a transformer issue, and the transformer was replaced and the timers were reset. Patrick Olson planted 5 azaleas, the Delaware Valley Whites, in front of the bay window of the children's wing of the same facility, and installed drip irrigation lines in that area. He also replaced shrubs and grasses in the courtyard. Those were planted before 2019, but he replaced those. And irrigation was turned on and general repairs made to the zones around the stage area. A black gum tree was planted near the stage area, and a Japanese cutleaf maple was planted in the corner of the stage area. And the Japanese maple was donated by Harry. So thank you, Harry, for that tree. The concert has had an abbreviated season, but the weather's been pretty favorable, and the concerts have been attended by about 150 to 200 people per concert. So with Stango Park Extended, also known as the library, Arbor Care performed the first and second quarter treatments for trees and shrubs. And in both park areas, Patrick Olson documented the irrigation zone chart so that we have a better idea where the sprinkler heads are for future reference. And that's my report.
Great. Thank you very much. Harry, we'll go to you. Any updates that you have for George H.P. Smith Park and anything you're doing?
Well, I've got some bird houses, some bluebird houses that we haven't been able to install. They were made by a donor. Marty Thompson provided the cedar and he made them, but of course we don't have them in because we held up on any purchases. I've been walking the park, inspecting, so I've been trying to keep up with EnviroTech's spraying and what they're doing. Been very pleased with that. And I helped dig up a tree we donated and then planted over in Stango Park. And that's it.
All right. Thank you. Warren.
Okay. Well, at both 1812 and Mary Vessels Park, Lewis and Blue planted several hundred annuals. We put in new self-watering planters at 1812 Park, which replaced the barrels. All the plants are doing very well, I think. in 1812 Park, Patrick Olson has pruned the cherry trees. And that's a lot better now where the branches aren't coming out into the walkway by the fence and into the parking lot. And I think everything is good in those two parks.
Great, thank you. Marty Thompson, our tree commissioner.
Thank you. I'm keeping my video turned off most of the time because I'm having computer issues. I think maybe bandwidth will be better if I turn off my video most of the time. But anyway, I'm pleased to report that we have been made a Tree City for 2019. I think that's the 19th year, if I'm counting correctly.
That's great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I said that's
Okay.
great.
You know, I'm going to repeat Rodney's request. Anybody not actively talking, if you put on your mute button, it helps all of us. I think it helps with bandwidth and it helps with a lot of things. So if you could put on your mute button. I've just been dealing with, there's various pop-up issues with trees, diseased trees, and trees hit by, wrecked by storm. There was a Second Street tree that was hit by a big truck that we've had to get dealt with by an arborist. And then I've been inspecting trees and conducting light pruning and tree tag maintenance, that sort of thing. Light duty stuff so far. But that's it for now.
Okay, great, thank you. This is Zoom. Did I get everybody? Did I miss anybody? I think I got everything. We have 2 items for discussion that are up for tonight.
Allison, Harry's got his hand up.
Oh, Harry has his hand up. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody when I say that we are sorry to lose you to the streets department. We know you'll be happy, but we appreciate all the effort you have done to make us look good. How you pick up behind us and stay in front of us and dodge all the bullets for us. And I think you've done a wonderful job. You've made being a park commissioner a lot simpler because of your hard work. And I want to personally, and I'm sure everybody here wants to thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, Harry. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. It's a fun job. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. So I'm still somewhat involved. Facilities helping you fix everything. So you can still call. Appreciate that. Thank you. So going on to new business, 2 things that came up for Parks and Rec to discuss. The first one, discussion and possible action on revising the Parks and Recreation, our current budget. This is due to COVID and the impacts it has put on the city revenue. Anne Marie asked if we could take a look at our budgets and see if there are any areas where we can possibly scale back on for this year. Whether that's projects that we put off to maybe next year, or maybe projects that we can scale down. So hopefully everybody's seen where you currently are on expenses. I know there are some contracts out there that we do have to honor. But other than things that we already have in place, and I know there's a couple of projects that I've gotten grants for that we might have to hold off on due to the revenue, such as some of the DENREC grants, including the playground and resurfacing the tennis courts. That's all grants that the city has to match funding. So is there any particular area you want to start with, or does anybody have any areas that they can suggest, and possibly Rodney?
Yeah, I don't know the best way to go about this, but I can certainly go through the budget that I prepared. because I have items like additional plantings for the shrub beds and things like that. We can just postpone all of that. None of that is really essential. I had items like replacing the grass in the infiltration bed at the kayak launch. Again, that's been that way for a few years. And since we're not putting the sculpture in, we can forego doing that. So I can go down the list and come up with, by my reckoning, between $12,000 and $15,000 worth of things that were on my budget that I could say we could postpone doing. And maybe the best way to do that is to simply identify them and send them to you in a memorandum.
Yeah, I think that would probably help.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you, Rodney.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that'd probably be best if we can discuss things, I guess, right now of areas that we can possibly save in, and then I guess everybody can follow up with a short little email, and I can compile all that and give that to Anne Marie. Anne Marie, would that work best for you? Or is there anything in particular that you're concerned with?
No, I guess a couple of numbers I just want to kind of pull out from the July financial report, and this is with the first quarter under our belts. We are about $43,000 behind where we would expect to be in terms of parking meter revenue as of the end of June. And let's see, and about 24,000 behind where we normally would be in terms of parking violations. And we're about $60,000 behind where we would normally be for building permits. So that kind of all adds up to real money. So
Like $100,000, is that what you're saying?
well, right, and that's where we are at this point in time. So we don't know. I think we're hopeful that we've been issuing a lot of building permits. We just haven't had any big dollar permits. And the parking revenue for June was very healthy. So we're hoping that can start to, that maybe it doesn't get worse. But again, any small amounts of savings that we can find in the existing budget will help us. We intend to bring a budget amendment forward to mayor and city council in probably September, definitely no later than October, that would reflect our current revenue projections and based on kind of where we were trending versus where we thought we might be before the pandemic. So
I guess I'll just go around and just hear from everybody where you think you may be able to save, and then if you could just put down your thoughts on your individual budgets and where you think you can save in an email. I'll compile that to Anne Marie, and then we'll come up with a kind of a revised budget to make sure that we're on the same page. And I'll send that out before it goes to council. I'll start up in the right-hand corner, Candace, and then I'll just make my way down.
With the exception of the contracts that we have with Arbor Care and potentially holding off some money in case of storm damage in Stango Park in particular, the other aspects of our budget we feel are fungible. So I'll modify our spreadsheets and send those to you. What I'll do is I'll color the items that we think we need to retain, and then the others will forego.
One question I would ask as you do this, if there are some things that can be cut back, we're not looking at taking a total, taking a whole thing out, but there are some things that if we take $1,000 out of it, then can't do it at all. So if you can kind of note the difference between those types of things, that would help us to make, we don't want the visual quality of our parks to suffer. So we don't want you to gut the budgets, but we want you, as the people who know best what the parks need to just take another look through.
So if we were to use a red, yellow, green model with the amounts that we have in our budget, then the red, we could signify which one. So the green we keep, the red can go away, and the yellow is something that we need to have some of. Fair enough? Okay, so we'll have that to you shortly.
Thank you. I'll just make my way down. Harry, just general comments, anything that you can maybe postpone and things that we definitely want to keep?
Well, most of what was in my budget this year were improvements. And the beauty of Smith Park is it is what it is and it doesn't change. So I can postpone 90% of what I plan to do. And the only thing I would hold back would be early spring things like getting the bluebird posts installed, getting some fish food out into the pond, maybe getting a truckload of soil to fix some of the ruts and holes. Outside of that, I'm fine. And I think the park will look just as beautiful as it does now.
Okay. Lauren, I'll just go around the circle. Do you have any comments or anything?
One of the things, because of the Envirotech contract, I would not want to get involved in doing much with the buffer or the island. It's just too fragile with all that spray. I've noticed some of the things we planted in April seem to be damaged, but it could be drought. But what I would like to do is get some soil on those wood chips and put seeds down on that meadow garden so that we actually, it's far away from everything, and it would be a good way to get started on planting that meadow garden and making that something that is worth looking at. And so I'm not sure the cost of the soil. I think they go about $35 a cube. That means 36 by 36 by 36, and getting it delivered, and and how much we'd need. It might be a number of cubes, but nonetheless, I don't see it as being a terribly expensive project, and we have lots and lots of plants and seeds that we can donate between me and other people who are interested in doing natural gardening. So that's the only project that I have in my mind. I'd like still to have some watering mechanism, because I think it's really a struggle for plants in this droughty times, in this hot weather. But if we have to wait for that, then we do. But we're talking $400. I mean, we're not talking thousands of these for these kinds of things. So no, that's where I'm going. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Lou,
do you have any comments?
Yeah, my budget's pretty small. The revised budget anyhow is only $4,400. So, yeah, I definitely can cut that in half. We went ahead with planning our spring annuals this year, and that was actually you use plants from Lewis and Bloom, and I'm not sure how that's going to be. Who that actually is going to go against if I'm going to be, it came out to $700. So I wasn't sure if that's going to be charged to my budget or if it's going to be part of Lewis and Bloom. Warren could probably attest to that. So the only other thing I'd like to do.
It'll get charged to your budget.
What's that?
It will get charged to your budget.
Okay, so that gets charged to my budget. But even with that, like I said, I'll cut over half of that. I'd like to do a fall planning, which will probably be another $500 or $600 to keep the park nice. But that should be about it.
Okay. Ronnie, we got Ronnie. Barry.
I think there's about like $2,500 in my account, and a lot of that was to replace the volleyball net And the streets department has been using the same one, and somehow they revived the old poles. So I think it's probably fine. We probably can, let go of some of that money. So.
Thank you. Warren, any comments?
I have one question. I noticed on the spreadsheet that the amount budgeted for 1812 Park was $5,000 some dollars. And that's more than I submitted. I don't know what the extra money was there. So I submitted a budget nearly $4,000, showing like 5,400. I don't know what that extra money was. So anyway, I basically spent the money, what I submitted for 1812 Park. I do have some money left over for Mary Vessels, and we will only need a small, maybe $100 of that in the future for the fall.
Warren, I was looking at your budget, it looks like they revised it to 3,000, not 5,500.
But let me see what.
I'm seeing what Warren is seeing.
Okay, because I look at I have a sheet here that shows that the budgets were amended in March 31st, and it went from 5,500 to 3,000. Oh,
no, so that was for the fiscal year that ended on March 31st. We have $5,465 for the new fiscal year that ends next March 31st.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that extra $1,500 is for in 1812 Park. Maybe it's something for the bed by the sidewalk.
Was it for the self-watering planters, perhaps?
No, that was included in the actual budget.
Okay, I'll go back and look at the budget documentation.
Okay. But anyway, I have no need to spend any more money in 1812 Park.
Okay. Marty, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do. I was working with basically 4 line items in my budget. I asked for $19,500 for routine pruning and maintenance. I asked for, there was $7,000 put in for storm damage. There was $11,500 put in for street pruning of street trees for city truck clearance. The city truck clearance piece has just been done by Bartlett, and I don't know the final amount, but it's someplace in that neighborhood. As far as the pruning and storm damage, I think I can forego for this year some of that routine pruning. You don't want to let that go for too many years in a row, or pretty soon you really have a problem with especially your bigger trees. But probably I'll end up asking that we will have maybe $10,000 available for the rest of the year. We always have storm damage. We always have pests pop up that we need to treat, that sort of thing. But I think if we have $10,000 available or in that neighborhood, we should be able to meet the immediate needs. The other item that was in there was the residential of 2nd Street and redoing all those trees for $15,000. And that certainly seems like a lot of money, but I'll say this, that was going to be, the $15,000 was going to include removing some of the small trees that were not thriving, and then reinvigorating some of the trees that we were going to retain there, root excavation and amending the soil in the root zone, plus completely renovating the planting holes and putting new plants there that were suitable, and because of the reinvigoration of the planting holes, hopefully would last. Now this spring we ended up having to go ahead and remove those trees after all the trees we were going to remove, because wood borers were found in some of the lilac trees. So the lilac trees we intended to retain, we treated and paid the arborist to do that. And the city streets department removed the little trees that we intended to remove anyway. But I just think if we delay too much longer, reinvigorating those trees and amending the soil, we'll end up losing more trees in the long run. Plus, it's starting to look pretty naked down at that end of the 2nd Street. It really affects, I think, it affects the aesthetics of it. So I think that's not something we have to do until this fall. So if I would like it to remain on the chart so that depending on how revenue turns out, the city council consider keeping that project going. But I guess it'll depend on a lot of factors. So.
Okay. I can do that. All right, thank you. So just to wrap up that business, I made notes, but if you could just email me individually with your, after you know, really look at your budget, and just email me with things that you just talked about, then I can compile all that for Anne Marie. Warren, I did just look at the budget that I submitted to council, and that extra $1,500 was put in there for banners for 1812 Park. When all the new light poles went up, there got banner arms. So I was planning on getting banners to go on those new poles, but right now there's already banners there for Love Lewis campaign. So I think we can probably hold off on buying.
Well, let me see where we charged that, because we did pay for those. So
For the Love Lewis banners?
we paid for $1,000 toward the
Okay.
banners.
Okay. So, okay. Any other questions or comments regarding recreation budget? Are there any questions or comments from any of the participants? I'm not sure. I don't think I see anything. Okay. So we can move on to the second item. Is review, discussion, and possible recommendation on city council adopted tennis and pickleball schedule at Canal Front Park Courts. As you may or may not be aware of, last month, city council took up the subject of the tennis and pickleball courts, and a schedule was discussed, and council adopted it, which is, if you haven't seen it, it is included on the agenda. You can click on the link of the schedule that was adopted by council. It is Monday through Sunday, goes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with 2-hour time slots, and alternates tennis and pickleball. Basically what that schedule is, from my understanding, is shows what sport has priority on the courts. And listening to the council meeting before I got on here, and the reason that it's on our agenda is that council just not threw it back at us, but said that if we had any comments, revisions, recommendations about the schedule or about what's going on down there, we can send our recommendations to council for consideration.
Can I just make a comment, Allison?
Sure.
I think everybody got a copy of the email that I sent the commission, the county council. I mean, I'm sort of in that area. And I don't really want to talk about that, but I thought it was important to express my concern about the council not using the council for what our purpose is. So, I mean, I don't really want to talk anymore about that, but I thought it was important to say we do have a Recreation and Parks Board, and if there's a sense of urgency, we can understand that. But I think a lot of these things ought to be worked through the group that has been appointed to do that. So that's all I'll say about the scheduling or what happened. But,
Barry, and you came up with you sent me a memo, and I did not forward it out to Parks and Recreation Committee because I didn't know if you wanted to present your thoughts about looking for other areas for possible pickleball or
well, do you want to talk about that now? I can certainly do that.
yeah. So I guess one is, does anybody have any comments about the schedule that council adopted? Good, bad, either way.
Is it working?
That I honestly am not sure, because as a city employee, there's no mechanism of where as an employee we can go down there and really monitor it or police it. You could say we don't have the staff to do that, so it's really kind of I'd say like an honor system between players on the courts.
I mean, I've been doing some observation there, but I'm certainly not going to sit down at the tennis courts and make sure people follow the rules. But, you know, so
if I
I
could,
don't know whether it's working. I can't really comment, and I should be probably the one that knows.
if I could jump in here, my guess it's a little too early to find out, to tell whether it's working well or not. I share your concern, Al. One of my concerns is how in the world do you manage something like that? You do just leave it up, put the rules up, and leave it up to the public to get along. And the best we can do right now, since it's already been passed, is to see how it works. I would think, give it a chance.
Oh, this is Marty. I would note that the council members stated that at the time it was passed, there was agreement between members of both the pickleball community and the tennis community to that schedule, and I'm sure not every individual is happy with it, but I agree that we have to see how it works. And if we were going to change it, I think we'd have to do a full bore, workshop or something to get a whole lot of input from all sides of the story to see what might work better.
I agree with that, Marty. And I was going to say at our January meeting, we approved a motion to just let the striping and everything be as it is now and move forward. And the whole issue of restriping would be dealt with at another time. And so my sense is we ought to just not change anything right now. Let's see what happens with terms with the scheduling. See how that works out.
Well, as far as scheduling, I agree with you. I think striping is a bit of a different issue because the striping issue to me is about what we do when the time comes to resurface the courts and how will they be marked out. I don't anticipate we would change the striping until that time. That's my understanding. But once it comes up for resurfacing and new striping, then we'll have to deal with that issue, what that's going to look like.
Harry had his hand up. Harry.
Yeah, I want to suggest that, am I muted? No.
No.
Okay, I want to suggest that we install some safety signs. I've noticed when there's a large group of people, either on the basketball court in the evenings, and when there's a larger group of people on the tennis pickleball courts in the morning, they're not observing social distancing. They're not wearing masks when they're not playing. And I think we need to have some new signs up there because obviously this is going to go on all summer. And because the mayor has talked about masks in the downtown area, and that certainly is including Canal Park.
Canal Front Park is actually outside of the area where masks are required. We did put signs up, Allison. Did some of them end up coming down on their own about masks? And
There's the summer safely signage down
right.
on both courts, and we put them up on the doors, on the gates to go in and out on the front and back. And I'm pretty sure I've seen them still up there on the doors. So, and they talk about the social distancing, the masks, everything that the governor put out. Again, it's a policing issue that's really kind of hard to police as a staff member. So what I'm hearing is from committee members is that you kind of want to see how this whole scheduling goes and then comment on it later. Again, the court resurfacing project, I don't know when that's going to happen. I know I have a grant with DENREC for half the money, but again, the city has to match it. So that matching money is, I think, maybe, not sure where that is right now with the budget. So I can't say it's actually going to get done this year. I think that's a to be determined type of project. But so I can't say we can talk about striping because I don't know when it's actually going to go forward. But our last discussion on the courts was that we were just keeping it as is. So right now the current hot topic is the schedule of the pickle and tennis ball or tennis ball courts with the schedule. Again, I know there's been a lot of recommendations from the public, comments about it. Again, I was looking to see if Parks and Recreation had any comments or concerns about that particular schedule that council put out. And it's sounding like that you guys don't just kind of want to see how it goes. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
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 Do you have anything that you want to add regarding the courts? Any future steps you might want to take to look at future resolving any issues down there?
Barry, why don't you talk to us?
Okay. Well, Rodney and I were talking about, obviously, the tennis courts are part of Canal Front Park. And I think we've kind of all recognized the demand for pickleball and the need to increase the opportunities of the places that people can play pickleball. I think part of the problem with what we currently have is we have a passive park with Canal Front Park, which is a place for sort of rest and relaxation, and right adjacent to the tennis court. So that's not the best situation to begin with. Obviously, the ball field and the tennis courts were there before Canal Front Park came to be. So obviously, we can't satisfy the entire need for pickleball in the area in Canal Front Park. It's only 2 tennis courts, and they aren't really designated pickleball. They're tennis courts. So we put together a proposal that really addresses the need to look for additional places. And let me just read the memo that we sent to Allison. And it's from myself and Rodney, and we've kind of both worked on this actually. Rodney put together most of it. I'll give him the credit. Let me just read this. It's clear that the demand for pickleball courts within the city of Lewis has grown beyond what the current city resources can accommodate. All indications are that this demand will increase. In an effort to address this growing need, we propose that the city undertake an effort to find an appropriate location for the development of new dedicated pickleball courts. We recommend that Parks and Recreation commissioners lead an effort working with both city administration and Lewis residents. To accomplish this, we suggest the following steps. Step 1, establish a pickleball committee consisting of Parks and Recreation commissioners, City of Lewis Parks and Recreation administrator, city planner, a small group of pickleball players that are residents of the city of Lewis. Step 2, hold a workshop in order to assess the demand within the Lewis community and identify county and state resources that might be available or be utilized. Develop a program for the pickleball facility that determines the appropriate number of courts, the required parking spaces, and the associated utilities and amenities, and the overall size in square foot acreage needed for a new facility. Step 3, search for available properties within the city and evaluate each property. Recommend appropriate resources to Recreation and Parks Commission and to the City Council in a public setting with the goal of selecting a preferred site. And step 5, prepare a conceptual plan to develop the preferred site and a budget for its implementation. So we can make sure that everybody gets a copy of this. I certainly can email it to the commissioners, or we can do it from Allison's perspective too. So comments?
So basically, it looks like
Rodney, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Not really. You read the memo. It's not. It's an effort to find a facility, which clearly we need. The question is, where should it go? How big should it be? What should be in it? I think we don't want to ask the city of Lewis to create a dedicated pickleball facility for the county or for the larger, population. We want it to be for citizens of Lewis to enjoy, and I think this has come up in past conversations and the public hearing that we had. People have said, "Gee, could we have a new facility available to us?" And I, for one, think that's a great idea. And but it's going to take some work. We need to find a property where it's appropriate, where it can happen, and that's what this is. And it's not. It stops. The effort of this proposal would stop when we come up with a property or a location where we think it's best suited to locate this, and we have some kind of a conceptual plan, so that we know, so that from that conceptual plan we could develop a budget, and then from that point on. One hopes that the pickleball community could apply for grants and do very similar to what the dog park folks did in bringing creating the funding and the resources together to see that thing built and completed. And I think that's probably the best way to go, at least as far as Barry and I have been talking about this several times, and we think we ought to kind of get started on that effort. I mean, people talked about it. Let's get started on it, and I think the Parks and Recreation commissioners have a role to play here, and we're willing to do that.
Okay.
I might. Yeah. Yeah.
Rob.
This is Marty. I have a couple comments, but
Marty,
You're
yourself.
muted. Marty, you're muted.
Maybe he's having trouble getting on.
Try again, Marty.
okay, am I unmuted now?
No.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't see me, I know, but my picture keeps going in and out. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Is that a yes?
yes.
Okay. So, I understand your comment about this is only for the citizens of Lewis, but the reality is that some of the money we got for original Canal Front Park, and certainly the money we're getting for the resurfacing of the current courts, and quite possibly the money that will come if to help fund this new pickleball facility will come from the state and or the county, and so it's not just about the citizens. And I know one of the potential locations that keeps getting mentioned is Great Marsh Park, which of course is owned by the state. City of Lewis leases it, if you will, but it's still owned by the state. So I don't think we can really say, and there's no way to keep just Lewis citizens on the courts at any given time. It's just not.
Well, we know that.
So that's just something. You know, I agree with having citizens of Lewis on the committee if we have that, but I am a little bit concerned in that I know when the dog park people came around and wanted a dog park, the city declined to take a leadership role. They said, look, if you really want a dog park, you come up with a plan and come to us and we'll approve or not approve or whatever. And I believe the same was true with the community garden. And of course, the community garden people explored many different options before they came to us and asked for a portion of Great Marsh Park. So I think it would be a big change in pattern if the city were to initiate this kind of a thing. But I'm not sure how to feel about that because, you know, there's all kinds of worthy causes at all times, and why make this effort for pickleball versus all kinds of other things.
I don't see it that way, Marty, because we have a current situation that we're dealing with in one of our parks. The dog park, there was no dog park. There was no community garden. So they're presenting a totally new, they presented a totally new idea that was not affecting the use of the current use of our park. So I feel that that's the difference. And one of the reasons we're doing this is to alleviate some of the stress on the current park.
Okay.
Just a different way to look at it.
I think that one of the points, though, that Marty made is that regardless of whether we intend for this to be for Lewis residents or for the greater Lewis area, unless we have, I mean, we don't close off any of our other facilities to non-residents. So there's the, you know, is that the right way to go, and also the practicality of how that would happen. So I do think that if we're looking at doing a pickleball facility, we need to look at the fact that we can certainly size it for Lewis residents, but the demand, as long as the county isn't providing that service, people will come here for it.
I don't disagree with that at all, and I didn't mean to imply that whatever we came up with would only be for Lewis residents. But I don't think we should feel obligated to set about planning a facility that serves the county. I just wouldn't go. I wouldn't go about the programming that way. That's all I meant to say.
It's interesting. I think it is it is a valid, an important use of Parks and Recreation time to consider what we want at the pickleball courts. Now, Lewis citizens versus county, I'm not sure it's possible to distinguish, but for instance, there's some concepts I've heard about having a facility that would accommodate tournaments, which of course is a much larger, more sophisticated kind of facility, would require a whole lot of parking because people come and go during tournaments and so on, versus just a facility that would accommodate a lot of recreational play. So I think it would be valid to have that kind of discussion. Pure recreational play would be lower key and take up less space, probably less parking space, etc. So that's the kind of thinking I think would be very useful to have done.
Anne Marie, have you been watching the Q&A?
We have something in the Q&A. We also have Chris Beakey has his hand raised. So are you ready to take comments? We can recognize Chris and then go to the Q&A. Is that okay, Allison?
Yeah, I was wondering how that worked. No, I wasn't quite sure how that worked.
So, okay. I don't know why it's not. I must have have to promote him to a panelist for it to work for some reason. So, all right. So, Chris, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I think I just did that. Are you okay?
We hear you.
Okay. So a couple things that come to my mind. First off, I'm a tennis player, but I have been listening for the past 15 minutes about all of these ideas about recognizing that pickleball is a very popular sport, a growing sport, certainly suited to the population here. I'm excited about the idea of the city and other people looking into ways to create more pickleball courts. I think it's exciting because there are so many opportunities. You talked about over by the Great Marsh. There's also Fort Miles, where there are former tennis courts that could, be repurposed to be pickleball courts. So all that makes me really, really happy because I have a lot of friends who play pickleball. But the second thing I want to weigh in on is people are asking about the scheduled hours and wondering, basically people are saying, well, let's see how this works out. I'll tell you that it's been, 10 days since these were in. And I know for the past couple of years, it's been very stressful going to the Canal Front Park in the morning, particularly on a cool day, on a summer day when it's cool. And the tennis players can't get on because there are a lot of pickleball players there because it's a sociable sport. There are a lot of people. With the scheduled hours, I went to play last Friday with a friend of mine. We knew priority tennis hours were 9 to 11. I got there at 5 to 9. The pickleball people could not have been nicer. It was all clear. We all knew, they had the courts from 7 to 9. 9 to 11 was prime tennis time. As soon as I got there, they went out of their way to say, we'll be off shortly. Once I got on there with the guy I was playing with, they made sure that we found a way to collaborate. In our case, it was just the two of us playing tennis. So the pickleballers, the other good thing about this is the pickleball players, because there weren't more tennis players, were able to hold on to their courts and keep playing. So nobody lost, nobody had to stop playing. And I just have to be really straightforward. The people who were playing pickleball were super nice. There was no reason to argue because the hours were scheduled. It was really clear. And I'm saying, as somebody who's been playing in these courts ever since I started playing tennis 3 or 4 years ago, this is clearly a great way to go because if you play pickleball, the hours you can go on, you can plan to get together with your friends. Same thing with tennis. And I'm just talking from a really practical point of view. it worked out really, really well. Now we still have some issues, obviously, with the way the courts are set up, which will hopefully be dealt with when they are redesigned in terms of the way the balls flow. But I think in terms of where we are now, just trying to find peace at the Canal front courts, my personal experience as somebody who uses these courts, daily, is that this is working really, really well for me as a tennis player, and I think probably for the Canal front park pickleball players as well.
Thank you, Chris, for your insight. Appreciate that.
So I don't see any other Q&A because the question that was in there was from Chris. And right now, no additional hands raised.
So are there any other comments from the attendees?
Do we need an action from the group to create this committee or whatever we want to call it? Rob?
That's a good question. I'm going to see if there's any other, it looks like there's another person who has raised their hand. Emery, I don't know if you can get them to answer. Or there's a lot of hands going up and down. I'm not sure how this is working. Emery, you're on mute, Emery, so you're in control.
Okay, so I've been talking to myself apparently. Pat, you can unmute yourself now.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, good. Yeah, I'm Pat Breen, and I'm the one that has the the memo in there to the Parks and Recs. And just in the future, we're just trying, I would like to have some changes in the linings. And I know you guys discussed about the lining, and it's in the future, but I think in the short future, you guys should start discussing it because I think it goes hand in hand with the new pickleball center. So if you have new pickleball, it would definitely affect Canal Front Park. And the two should really, so if you're going to have a new center, then Canal Front should go to a, because the major problem, what Chris is saying, is because of the 6 pickleball courts, the issue we have is between the tennis and the pickleball players. So back in 2017, when they did the original change to 6 pickleball courts, that's when it became a tennis pickleball issue. So, at that time, I think, you should have looked at the state park, had 4 pickleball courts made, and then you wouldn't have this issue between tennis and pickleball. Because right now, the whole issue is with the priority scheduling eliminates 50% of playing time for tennis players, but it won't affect anything with the pickleballers because tennis players randomly show up. So that's why when we do change the lines, I'm recommending for the sharing plan. So that should affect the priority scheduling. So right now, since we don't have the, I can understand what Chris is saying. We don't have the sharing plan into effect. So that means, the priority scheduling will help. But down in the future, if we can really take a look at both at the same time, so then if we alleviate the issues because we have more pickleball courts, then we can take a look at the sharing plan, which is very sensible. And then you have less issues between tennis players, and then we'll have less issues with the priority scheduling. So then tennis players can actually use their tennis courts not 50% of the time. So in the future, if we can get to the sharing plan or something close to it that has less pickleball courts, something that's common, like the sharing plan is very common. So once we move in that direction, we have different alternatives, because right now you eliminate 6 pickleball courts, you go down to 2 pickleball courts, which is really what most facilities do. They go down to 2 pickleball courts, like the sharing plan, and the sharing plan is very pickleball oriented. If you look at that sharing plan, which is on the website, it has 2 pickleball courts. They can play at the same time. So those pickleballers will be playing a lot in the morning on those 2 courts. And then you do have, so I think they could be playing for, like Chris says, there's only one group of tennis players playing, you can still have 10 to 12 pickleballers playing. And then on the other side, you have tennis players have access, they know it's open, they can get to it. So it sort of eliminates the priority scheduling. So right now, the priority scheduling is not bad, but in the future, if we could change that and go to a lower amount of courts, that would help. So I really recommend the sharing plan.
Rob?
Allison, I think Barry directed a question to me about how the committee should be set up. It seems to me that the committee has a few things to tackle. One is trying to find a place for more pickleball courts. 2 is dealing, once that's online, with restructuring the priority plan for Canal Front Park. And 3, how to line Canal Front Park. There may be other things too. I hope Barry's not thinking that he wouldn't be part of the committee. And as he said, he's somebody who's got experience in this field. I don't know why it wouldn't be a subcommittee of the Parks and Rec.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Say again, Barry?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I mean, active recreation is sort of it is my area. The playgrounds and all, so I think working with Rodney, who is in charge of the Canal Front Park, I mean, if the 2 of us could sort of co-chair it, I think that would be a good match.
Well, I think it's up to the committee to go ahead with that idea, to act on that idea.
So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing,
We probably need motion.
that the current schedule that council adopted will continue to let that play out, and we'll monitor that and monitor any comments that come in on that. And if there are any suggestions, issues, revisions from Parks and Recreation, that you'll come back as a committee, make those suggestions, recommendations during the committee, and send that off to council for consideration. And in the meantime, I'm hearing that there is a possibility of forming a subcommittee to look at possible pickleball courts somewhere else within the city. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. So to make a subcommittee, do we need a motion to make a subcommittee? Or how does that work? Is that a yes, Anne Marie?
I think, yes, you do need a motion to create a subcommittee.
Okay. As the chair, I cannot make that motion. So does anybody want
I'll
to?
make the motion. I'll make the motion that we form a subcommittee to be co-chaired by Barry Duncan and me to look into, with the help of the city and participation of residents of Lewis, to look into a potential location for dedicated pickleball courts.
Okay.
Based on the proposal that we submitted.
Based on the memo, which unfortunately I guess you all haven't seen, but we'll get that.
Not now. We just got it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Warren seconds that. Okay.
Harry's got his hand up.
Harry has his hand up. Yes, Harry. Unmute yourself, Harry.
Yeah, maybe a little discussion for my clarity. I heard two different things. I heard Barry and Rodney propose something that would be city-driven, but yet one of the people that talked mentioned the fact that there are unused tennis courts or former tennis courts out at Fort Miles.
All of that we've considered. All of those options have already been on,
But
presented.
right, but my question would be if we are going to be recommending something to the county, are we going outside of Lewis with this? Because as Anne Marie described it, this is a greater Sussex County need more than it is a Lewis need. That's all. Just that point.
My answer is no, we're not going out. We're not going to go out into the county and do that. I mean, we want to make ourselves aware of what's available out in the county. If there are other things planned, I don't know, does county have things planned for pickleball?
Well, that's part of
The
the
county does not have a Parks and Recreation department or program.
Okay.
But it could be where the subcommittee looks at that, or maybe the subcommittee gathers that information if other towns or other private entities are creating something or considering something.
Well, I think assessing the demand could be part of that. Is
Right.
part of that, really.
So
I would think that it would be a necessary part to consider properties outside city limits, and if that could help solve Lewis's pickleball problem, I think that would be a good knowledge to have if there are places in city limits.
That's part of assessing the demand, step 2. So that would be including assessing the demand. You can't assess the demand unless you know what's available. It's not just the numbers of people, it's what's out there to be used.
Well, and my suggestion would be that you don't constrain yourself too much, because sometimes the best solutions are outside the box. It could be that there's an opportunity for partnership with the county or the state. So again, it could be a regional thing that we take a leadership role on, or it could end up being a city project in the end, depending on how it shakes out.
Fair enough.
Emery, Kathy Casey has her hand raised.
The motion on the floor, though.
Emery, you're muted, so I don't know what you're saying.
He said there's a motion on the floor. I said, oh, correct. So I guess, are you going to allow public comment while there's a pending motion?
Robert's Rules of Order says.
I don't know. Rob, do you know what it says?
Robert says that in a small committee like this, you're not held to the rules, so you can do it.
Council has done it before, so.
Okay. Does Kathy have I guess we can listen, just if there's something to the motion.
Yeah, I would just like to add some information because I want to make sure that you have what we have. I'm the president of the First State Pickleball Club, and I've worked with Ray Bivens with the state park. We obtained money from Representative Schwarzkopf and from Senator Bernie Lopez. We've completed site selection reviews with an outside consulting firm, and we've also completed a 143-page feasibility study, which takes a look at the what, why, how one would go about
creating a pickleball facility. So I want to bring this to your attention only because you're talking about doing things that I think we've already done. We've identified the market. We know, at least from the pickleball membership that we have close. I said on the last call, I said there were about 1,000 people, and that's probably true. But on our numbers of what we looked at, we examined zip code, driving times between throughout Sussex County in increments of 30, 60, 90-minute drive times to get to a pickleball facility. And that facility was initially looked at through DENREC at the direction of Ray Bivens to look at Wolf Neck Road and to look at the Glade. And we are now asking to look at the Great Marsh in a private-public partnership to look at an opportunity to provide a pickleball facility that would be available to the community, to the general public, through a private-public partnership. And so I just want to make you available of all the research that has come out of the state, because I know that Ray Bivens has an interest in seeing pickleball going to the state parks. As far as the Cape Henlopen grounds, that was studied a while back. I was not part of that, but because of ADA requirements and the renovation of the material and what's happened over there where those abandoned tennis courts are, it was not worthwhile pursuing. And so that's been put down. And I think, Mr. Duncan, you said that you knew about that. So I'm wanting to share this with you. I'm not a resident of the city of Lewis, although many of our pickleball club members are. And I just wanted to make you aware of what we have so that you don't have to redo what's already been done. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan?
Kathy, can you share that feasibility study with Rodney and Barry?
I think Ted was aware of it recently.
Right.
When Ted, he told me about it.
Do you have it, Barry?
I don't have it yet. No, I've heard about it about 2 weeks ago.
Then maybe, Kathy, do
I
you
think
have
we all
it?
would probably like to see it. We probably
It's
will.
public information. I mean, you should be able to get it.
I do have the feasibility study, and I'd be happy to share it with you.
That'd be super. Maybe you
Again,
can.
my intention is to not reinvent work that's already being completed, and it would be useful to this committee. The only other thing I want to mention is I think that what I'm hearing is you have two separate issues. One is there are way too many pickleball players who play pickleball in Lewis, and you're trying to solve the problem of what should we do about that. And through this committee, you are suggesting that you take a look at that, and maybe it's worthwhile in Parks and Recreation for the city of Lewis to do something, or to partner with the county and the state, or take advantage of the momentum we have here. I think the issues about the Canal Front Park itself and having pickleball available to visitors and residents, I think is a little bit of a different issue. And that's the way that I think about it. And I'm nobody, I'm not part of your city, but I'm somebody that is part of the pickleball community. I think the people who live in the city of Lewis would say the same thing. They do not want to see those courts, the pickleball courts, disappear, because that would be an injustice to the growing trends of pickleball throughout the country and in the county and the state and the city of Lewis. So when people look down at those courts, they would think, why don't they have pickleball courts here? So I'm sorry, I just weighed in my 2 cents, more than you asked for. Who would you like me to send this to? Do you want me to send this feasibility? First, I need to, yes. Should I go to Ann Townsend to?
You can send it to me and I can get it out to the members.
Okay. May I ask that members of First Day Pickleball Club who either live in or outside of could be invited to attend the Parks and Recreation Committee that's going to look at the feasibility of a pickleball facility?
So the subcommittee meetings will be public.
Okay.
So they would be, at least for the time being, available the same way this meeting is. Maybe one day we'll meet in person, who knows. But But, so yes, they would be publicly available.
Every single meeting would be publicly available? This is really for Rodney and Barry
Eh,
as well.
Well, if it's a subcommittee, it has to be under state law. So, yes.
Open meetings.
They all have to be open meetings.
Yes, all city meetings are open meetings.
Okay. One of the things I'm trying to do is, I don't believe that Mr. Robinson, or may I call you Rodney, or Barry, may I call you Barry?
Rodney?
Thank you, Rodney. I guess what I would ask is, so often we've seen many organizations take on pickleball and they design what they think pickleball is, as opposed to really understanding the culture of pickleball as well as the needs of the pickleball community, so that, you know, you basically can hit a home run when you go to meet those needs. So I'd like to make sure that the pickleball community has input.
Well, if we're putting pickleball people on the committee, then I think we're going to get input.
That would be terrific.
So right now we have a motion from Rodney to form the subcommittee based on the memo that Barry read, the 5-step process. And we have a second, Warren. And Harry has his hand raised.
Can we amend this motion or amend this proposal to include examining the First State pickleball research and document as part of this, to include it, because it sounds like they've already invented this wheel?
You don't need, may I address that?
Yes.
Harry, we don't need to do that. Step 2 is whole workshop in order to assess demand within the Lewis community and identify county and state resources that might be available. And that, in that effort, Barry and I had in mind that we would try and get our hands on, because we don't know. I don't know. We want to get our arms around the work that's been done, and this feasibility study that Kathy Casey is talking about is wonderful news, I think. So yeah, we want to get a hold of that and look at it with the committee, which includes pickleball players, so that we can incorporate that into our thinking. I think that would be essential, and I'm very happy to hear that study has been done.
Rodney and Barry, I have a question about the motion. How many, so typically it's good to have an odd number of voting members on the committee. So would you, the two of you, would there be 3 pickleball players that you would pull in?
I don't know. I haven't thought, I don't know, Barry, maybe you've thought farther than that. I haven't. I mean, we even said we want the city planner involved. Is the city planner available?
I can certainly talk to her. I would think that the city staff would be ex officio, that we would not, any city staff would not vote.
Okay, I don't know how these things work. So it seems to make sense that we would have an odd number of committee members. Yeah. Do we need to put that in the motion? We could add it to the memo, if you like.
I mean, I would just make a point of specifying the number, and that the 3, you know, if you make it 3 pickleball players would be selected by you and Barry.
Okay.
Just so it's clear.
Isn't this subcommittee also going to tackle the question of what, if anything, to do about Canal Front Park once the pickleball facility is
resurfaced?
Yeah.
I think that would have to come back to Parks and Rec.
I hadn't planned on doing that.
I think this is a separate
If
issue.
you go to resurface, it just has to come back to Parks and Rec.
Well, and I think if you're going to do that, then you need to bring in the tennis players.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking. But if you're going to do iteratively the pickleball facility first, you're right.
All we want to do is see if we can find a site that would be available and accommodate whatever the programming is. I have no idea at this point how many courts we're talking about. And, you know, Marty brought up a great point. Or is this a facility for tournament play, or is it going to be a facility for,
Right.
you know, local play? I don't know the answer to that. I really don't.
So the motion, Ronnie, we still have your motion to form the subcommittee based on the memo. Warren seconded. And do we want to specify that we will add 3 pickleball members from the community to be on the subcommittee?
Yes.
Okay. Warren, are you still good with that as your second?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, do I have, I'll just go around Zoom. You just say yes, yay or nay. Candace?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Rodney?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes, of course.
Warren?
Yes.
Lorna?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And Marty?
Yes.
All right, so that passed. We will form a subcommittee and we will get 3 pickleball players from the community to add to the committee. Barry and Rodney will chair that subcommittee. And again, this be a subcommittee, so you guys will just get your agenda together and we'll have to post it at least 7 days ahead of time because it will be an open meeting.
Sure.
Alrighty, so I think that concludes our recreation meeting via Zoom. Are there any, I don't think I missed anything. I guess that's it. So I appreciate everybody coming to Zoom.
I move to adjourn.
Barry has a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second that.
Got some seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Sounds wonderful. All right. Well, thank you again. And I appreciate everybody being here. We will adjourn the meeting at 8:41 p.m. And I hope everybody has a good night. And I will see y'all around town.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Well,
Good night.
good night.